Hey everyone, welcome to our first installment of Mics and Movies. Let me tell you how excited I am to start this segment. This is actually my very first YouTube video idea, but I wanted to situate everything and make sure that all of the systems, that all of the technology was working before I brought it to you. So here's what Mics and Movies is all about. I'm going to be taking famous speeches from movies and television shows, and I'm going to be breaking them down and articulating exactly why they are effective and how you can use the exact same strategies in your public presentations. One of the reasons why I'm doing this is because traditionally public speaking training can be a little bit dull, and it's really hard to understand what you need to do without first seeing someone else do it. So these speeches aren't just for entertainment, they're also a great model for us as to how we get to present ourselves and our ideas to others. And I'm going to kick off Mics and Movies with one of my absolute favorite movies of all time, A Knight's Tale. Now listen here. If you haven't seen A Knight's Tale, number one, spoiler alerts. Number two, let's rectify that situation right away. A Knight's Tale is a great movie to have on when you want something a little bit brain dead, but you also want something with a powerful message. There's a lot of great visuals, a lot of great dialogue, a lot of great action and energy in this film, but there's also something underneath it all. And that something underneath it all is that someone can change their stars. Someone can change the fate that they are destined to if they so choose. Here's the basic premise of the movie. William Thatcher, our main protagonist, our main character, is a squire for a knight. Now, a knight competed in all sorts of different competitions, from sword fighting to archery to jousting. But in order to compete, you had to be a knight and you had to show your lineage. Now, through random series of events that is revealed in the first 5 minutes of the movie, again, we find that William Thatcher doesn't have a knight to serve. And so he decides that he's going to step in and compete. Now, this is a major, major no-no. Because if you are caught competing where a knight is supposed to compete, it is punishable by many, many different punishments, including death. And this is where we're going to start analyzing. Before a knight competes, there's an option for an introduction. Now, in modern terms, we're going to call this the hype speech. And this is most directly applicable probably to a wedding toast. Now, our introducer is none other than Geoffrey Chaucer. Now, Geoffrey Chaucer isn't just a fictional character in A Knight's Tale. Geoffrey Chaucer was actually a very, very famous author of the time. The fact that they used Geoffrey Chaucer as a character in this play, and the fact that he has a lot of references to the actual Geoffrey Chaucer writing is pretty amazing. Now, the real Geoffrey Chaucer was not only a master in language, but he was also a little bit vulgar and very inappropriate. I'm still curious as to how I was able to read Geoffrey Chaucer in high school and not have it be a banned piece of writing. So the screenwriters of A Knight's Tale did a masterful job with this character, especially when he is introducing someone. We're going to start right after one of William's wins, when Chaucer is trying to pump up the crowd and get them excited about the win.
Behold, my Lord Ulrich, the rock, the hard place! Like a wind from Geldland he sweeps by, blown far from his homeland in search of glory and honor. We walk in the garden of his turbulence!
Now notice here, the awkward silence. This is important to note because sometimes you come out into a crowd with great, huge pump-up energy and nothing happens. But that's not a sign to quit. Look what happens next. Sometimes it just takes one person to get excited with you to spread the excitement to others. Now, let's transition into one of his very first official introductions.
My lords, my ladies, And everybody else here not sitting on a cushion?
That in itself is brilliant. Anyone else not sitting on a cushion. Here's what he did there, is he is appealing to the greater masses. There's royalty, which he respectfully addresses, but then he recognizes that most of the crowd noise is going to come from the people. So he's immediately appealing to them and talking to them directly. And check out the devices that he uses to connect his hero to make them hit their hero.
Today, you find yourselves equals.
You find yourselves equals. This is a key thread line throughout the entire movie and the goal and the desire for everyone in that crowd. Keep in mind that you couldn't just be promoted tonight. It wasn't the American dream that if you pulled yourself up by your bootstraps and you worked hard enough, you could get what you wanted. People were locked into their social class. And so for them to imagine themselves as equals is incredibly powerful.
For you are all equally blessed. For I have the pride, the privilege, nay, the pleasure of introducing to you a knight sired by knights, a knight who can trace his lineage back beyond Charlemagne. I first met him atop a mountain.
Notice his other friend is having an exasperated look. And the reason for that is because Chaucer is over-dramatizing. Now, over-dramatizing isn't just fun for the internet. It's also a very good rhetorical strategy when you are pumping someone up. The over-exaggeration of someone's qualities doesn't negate their qualities, it actually highlights them. And the more absurd that over-dramatization is, the more effective those qualities stand out.
I first met him atop a mountain near Jerusalem, praying to God, asking his forgiveness for the Saracen blood spilt by his sword. Next, he amazed me still further in Italy when he saved a fatherless beauty from the would-be ravishings of her dreadful Turkish uncle. In Greece, he spent a year in silence just to better understand the sound of a whisper. And so, without further gilding the lily, and with no more ado, I give to you the seeker of serenity, the protector of Italian virginity, the enforcer of our Lord God, the one, the only, Sir Ulrich von Liechtenstein!
Amazing. Amazing. Okay, there's two things that you get to note from that speech. Number one is that he tells stories. Now, a lot of people think that stories need to be these long, extravagant, detailed narratives. But he tells multiple stories in multiple sentences. A story can be one sentence. And especially when you're hyping someone up, when you're introducing someone, those one-sentence stories are incredibly effective. The second thing I want you to notice is his use of language, alliteration, patterns, rhyming. These are the special effects of the time. And sometimes because we have the ability to have such special effects like explosions in the background or a kitten meowing at me, we often forget that the original special effects are the ones that we use with our words. And those are not to be negated, and those pop out to an audience whenever the audience hears it. Now let's head to another portion of the movie where another individual introduces another knight. And this is significant. Let's watch.
My lord the Count Adhemar, son of Philip de Vitry, son of Gilles, master of the Free Companies, defender of his enormous manhood, a shining example of chivalry and champagne.
Now, this speech is clearly not as good as Geoffrey Chaucer's, but there's two things I want you to notice. Number one, Geoffrey Chaucer was trying to mess with the speaker. Don't do that. Here's why this speech is important, even though it is from another speaker introducing the knight that we do not like. First of all, it's his best attempt at an introduction. He saw Geoffrey Chaucer and he saw how Geoffrey Chaucer got the crowd to be part of his team. So he's trying to do the same thing, but it's really awkward and clumsy and uncomfortable. And here's the thing. While that was intended to be a little bit of a comic relief and a juxtaposition to Geoffrey Chaucer, I'm glad they included that because as a speech performer, sometimes when you're trying out new techniques, it's going to feel clunky and awkward and uncomfortable, especially when you're comparing yourself to someone who's been doing it for much, much longer than you have. But let's get back to our real introduction hero, Geoffrey Chaucer in his last introduction at the movie.
Good people! I missed my introduction! But please, I pray you, hear it now. For I would lay rest the grace in my tongue and speak plain. Days like these are far too rare to cheapen with heavy-handed words. And so, I'm afraid without any ado whatsoever, excuse me, my lord, here he is! One of your own! Born a stone's throw from this very stadium, and here before you now, the son of John Thatcher, Sir William Thatcher!
Now that speech always gives me chills. Why? It was ridiculously simple, and in comparison to his other speeches, it was incredibly tame. Well, first, to understand the full context of his speech, you're gonna have to watch the movie. And second, he exemplifies something really, really important in speech writing and speech delivery. Sometimes, even in a hype speech, even when you're pumping up the crowd for someone else, brevity is the best. Here, Chaucer only needed to communicate one thing, that this William Thatcher was one of the people. He was born a stone's throw from the stadium, which was a huge, huge deal to that crowd. It automatically humanized him and made him a hero at the same time. And so when you are developing a speech to pump someone up, to really introduce someone in a dramatic fashion, don't forget that while we get to do over-dramatization and melodramatization and all the tizations, it is also very important to just stick to the basics as to what makes a person great. So again, make sure that when you're introducing someone that you're not afraid to go over the top, that you're not afraid to use the special effects of language, and you're not afraid to be brief and to the point. I hope you enjoyed our first installment of Mics and Movies. I know I've had a blast preparing and delivering it for you. And make sure that you subscribe so you can keep up to date on all the Mics and Movies segments, as well as content related to confidence, communication, and storytelling. And make sure that you get yourself off on mute and speak up your story. Until next time, we'll see you soon.